TIFU asking my Tinder date to choke me. This happened a few weeks back. Only posting now since the condition has finally cleared up. I've just recently started getting back into the dating scene. Met up with a guy from Tinder that I'd been chatting with for a few days for drinks. Things were going very well. There were no awkward gaps in conversation. We were both into a lot the same things. He was really funny, and it didn't hurt that he was also super fucking hot and in shape. Maybe 2-ish hours and he asked me if I had any plans afterwards. When I told him I was probably just gonna go home and watch Kenobi, he asked if I wanted someone company while I did. I said fuck yeah, and we headed back to my place, where needless to say we did not end up watching Kenobi, or at least not very much of it before we dropped the pretense, started mashing lips together, and clothes started flying off. Something to note about me is that I love roughness and love getting manhandled. I understand that's not for everyone, but that's what I like. This guy was very sweet, and very gentle with me, but at this point I'm very much into it and trying to get him to go harder. Spank me, pull my hair, etc. Finally he's got me prone from behind and I'm calling out for him to choke me, since I know it'll drive me over the edge. He's very reluctant, but eventually relents. I had expected him to just use one hand on my neck, but he ended up using his whole arm, kind of like how they do in UFC fights. It was very tight, but he was putting almost no pressure on it, so I could still breathe relatively normally. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it's the best way I can think to describe it. Wanting it to be tighter, I kind of teased him by saying come on, don't be a pussy, trying to be sexy but also letting him know to choke me harder. He obliged, and it was the tightest I've ever been choked. I could feel my whole body shaking as I started to orgasm. The next thing I knew I was jolting awake and gasping for air. It's not the first time I've passed out from being choked, but this guy was urgently trying to get me dressed and to a hospital. I thought he was overreacting until he got me in front of a mirror and I saw that one of my eyes was filled with blood. Like imagine all the parts of your eye that are white are all just blood red. It didn't hurt, but needless to say it freaked me out pretty badly. To wrap up this overly long story, I spent about 4 to 5 hours awkwardly explaining what happened to multiple nurses and hospital staff. Explaining that I had asked him to do it and that he wasn't abusing me. Which I imagine was hard to believe given the appearance of my eye and the bruise starting to form around my neck. Long story short, the doctor let me know I had popped a blood vessel in my eye, and that while it looked bad, it was most likely superficial and would clear up in a few weeks. He ended up driving me home, but ended up not responding to any of my calls or texts the following day. Found out he ended up unmatching me on Tinder as well. So yeah. Pretty sure I traumatized him and blew that opportunity at a relationship. TLDR. Ended up asking my Tinder date to choke me. Ended up passing out and popping a blood vessel in my eye. Had to explain that I'm just a kinky weirdo to hospital staff, and likely traumatized my date to the point he wants nothing to do with me. Edit. Just wanted to take a moment to update this post and clear up some things. I completely acknowledge that this situation was 100% my fault and I really do feel awful about what happened, but there's not a whole lot I can do. I had already reached out to try to make amends the day after the incident happened. As much as I would love to properly apologize in person for everything that happened, it's clear that he doesn't want to speak to me, so I'm going to respect his wishes on that. No, I'm not going to therapy because I have a kink and got caught up in the moment because I was horny, or for any other contrived reason you come up with. Please stop assuming I'm super into BDSM, I'm really not. I just enjoy a little roughness and being choked. I do appreciate the people giving solid advice though. He might have been reluctant to choke me, but he was still very much a willing participant. You can call it victim blaming or whatever, but some of you are very cavalier with your use of the word rape and sexual assault. Will update if I think of anything else.